You want to know the truth about the phantom lynx? I was there. I stood close enough to hear her breathe. And I'm telling you, the first time I saw her, I thought the same thing everybody else did. I thought this skinny, quiet girl is going to get one of us killed. So don't think I'm some kind of fan. I earned every word I'm about to say. It was late autumn when she got transferred to our unit. We were stationed up in the high country, a place all rock and wind, where the cold came in sideways and the radios crackled like they were chewing on something. We held a forward post on a ridge they just called Marker 9. No real name, nothing up there worth nomming, we figured. Just stone, scrub, and a long, ugly valley below us that the enemy used as a road. Our job was simple to say and hard to do. Watch the valley. Stop anything moving through it that shouldn't be moving. And do it without getting our heads taken off, because somewhere across that valley, on a ridge we couldn't quite pin down, there was an enemy marksman who'd already cost us 2 good men. We didn't have a name for him yet, we just called him the Cough, because that's all you heard. A flat little cough way off in the distance, and then somebody you'd had breakfast with was gone. No warning, no second chance. I was a spotter back then, 23 years old and convinced I knew everything. My shooter had been hit in the shoulder a week before and rotated out, so I was waiting on a replacement. And then the supply truck rolled in one gray morning, and out of the back climbed this woman. She was small, that's the first thing, not tiny, but not what you picture when you hear the word sniper. She had a long rifle case slung across her back like it weighed nothing, and a face that didn't give you anything. Brown eyes that just kind of moved over everything once, slow, like she was counting. She set her boots in the mud, looked up at our position, and the only thing she said was, "Where's the wind worst?" Nobody answered her, because nobody took her seriously. Sergeant Decker was the one who started it. Decker was our golden boy, best shot on the post, and he knew it, and he made sure everyone else knew it too. He had a way of standing that took up more room than he had any right to. He looked her up and down, and he laughed, this short, ugly laugh, and he said it loud enough for all of us. You call yourself a sniper." She didn't answer, she just kept unloading her gear. "No, seriously," he said, walking closer now, playing to the crowd. "What are you, 120 pounds soaking wet? You're going to lie behind that rifle and the recoil's going to put you on your back." A couple of the guys laughed. I'll be honest, I think I smiled. I'm not proud of it, but I did. She finally looked at him, just looked, and she said real quiet, "You done." That made it worse, of course. Men like Decker, you make them small in front of others and they have to get big again. He came right up to her, close, looking down, and he said, "Listen, sweetheart. Up here, mistakes don't make you sad, they make you dead. I've already buried 2 men, I'm not burying a third because command sent me a checkbox." She held his eyes for a long second. Then she picked up her case and walked past him toward the post like he was a fence post she had to step around. That was the moment, I think, that the whole unit decided about her. We decided she was a problem, a liability, something to manage. We didn't even give her a chance, and we told ourselves we were being smart. Her name was Mara Holt. She came with a file thinner than my arm and a reputation that came down to 2 words people said with a smirk: real quiet. That was it. No war stories, no big kills people bragged about over coffee, just real quiet. They paired her with me. The captain figured 2 leftovers, stick 'em together, see what happens. Decker found that hilarious. "There goes the kid's last good days," he said, clapping me on the back. "When she gets you killed, I'll say something nice at the service." I want to tell you I defended her. I didn't, I just laughed it off and went to go meet my new shooter. She was already at our position when I got there, a cut in the rock with a torn camo net stretched over it that we'd been using for months. And here's the thing that started turning me around, even though I fought it. She'd changed everything. The first day, she'd been there maybe 2 hours, and she'd already moved our hide a full 9 meters to the left, into a shadow I'd never even considered. She'd torn down half the netting and re-rigged it so it broke up our outline instead of just hiding us, which is a different thing, and a thing I should have known and didn't. She had little scraps of cloth tied to twigs all down the slope in front of us. "What are those?" I asked her. "Wind," she said, not even looking up. "Yours reads from 1 flag, I read from 12. The valley lies. It says one thing at the top and another at the bottom. You have to read all of it or you read none of it." I didn't have anything to say to that, so I just sat down next to her and shut up, which honestly was the smartest thing I'd done all week. We lay there the rest of that day and most of the next, not talking much. She'd ask me a question now and then. How long had the Cough been hunting us? Which men had we lost, and exactly where they'd been standing when it happened? What time of day? What the light was doing? She wrote it all down in a little notebook with a stub of pencil, in handwriting so small I couldn't read it over her shoulder. "You think you can find him," I said finally, "the shooter across the valley." She didn't look up from the notebook. "He's already found us," she said. "Everybody's so busy looking for where he is, I'm looking for where he has to be." I didn't understand that then. I would. That second night the cold came down hard, the kind that gets into your teeth. Decker stopped by our hide on his rounds, mostly to needle her. He crouched at the edge and looked at all her little wind flags and her moved netting, and he shook his head. "Cute," he said, "real cute. You know what wins up here, not your arts and crafts, steady hands and the guts to take the shot. You got either of those, checkbox?" Mara turned her head and looked at him for a moment in the dark, and she said something I've never forgotten. "The shot's the easy part," she said. "Everybody can pull a trigger, the hard part is being patient enough to deserve it." Decker snorted and moved off into the dark, but I lay there in the cold turning that sentence over and over. Patient enough to deserve it. I didn't sleep much that night. Something about her had gotten under my skin, and it wasn't her size and it wasn't her quiet. It was that she seemed to be playing a completely different game than the rest of us, and winning it in her head before anyone else had even understood the rules. I just didn't know yet how high the cost was going to be before the rest of us caught up. It broke open 3 mornings later. The light was just coming gray over the far ridge, that thin watery light you get up high before the sun really commits. Most of the post was still moving slow, half asleep men shuffling between the bunkers with tin cups, breath hanging in the air. Mara had been awake for hours. She always was. I'd learned by then that she slept maybe 3 hours a night and spent the rest just watching the valley, listening to it, letting it talk to her. I came up to the hide with 2 coffees and she didn't take hers. She had her eye on the scope and her whole body had gone still in a way I was starting to recognize meant something. "He moved," she whispered. "What?" "The cough. Last 3 kills he shot from the north shoulder. He's tired of it. He moved last night. I heard rock fall across the valley at 04, small, twice." She tapped her notebook without looking. "He's setting up somewhere new today, somewhere he thinks is better." I started to ask how she could possibly know that from a couple of rocks falling in the dark, and that's when the morning ended. The cough came. Just that flat far-off sound, almost gentle, almost nothing. And down by the supply bunker, a man named Tavar, who had 2 kids and a laugh you could hear across the whole post, dropped his cup and went down and didn't get up. Everybody scattered. You've never seen men move so fast and so useless at the same time, diving behind crates, behind the truck, behind anything, shouting, the medic crawling toward Tavar on his belly, and the whole time none of us knew where to even point because the cough never showed itself. It just took and went quiet and took again. Decker was screaming into the radio, calling it in, calling for the mortar team, but the mortars were useless. You can't drop a shell on a ghost, you have to know where he is, and nobody did. Except Mara hadn't moved, hadn't flinched. She lay there behind her rifle, calm as still water, her eye to the scope, breathing slow. "You see him?" I hissed, dropping down beside her. "No," she said. "Then what are you doing?" "Waiting." Her voice was almost bored. "He fired once." Tavar was in the open near the bunker. "From the north shoulder, that's no shot, the bunker blocks it, so he's not on the north shoulder anymore. He moved south there." She moved one finger off the rifle and pointed across the valley at a tumble of gray rock that looked like every other tumble of gray rock for a mile. "Somewhere in that, I just don't know which stone yet." "So make him show you." She almost smiled. "That's the idea." Then Decker was there, dropping into our hide hard, breathing fast, his calm all gone. Another man was hit by then. A kid named Pell shot through the leg trying to reach Tavar. The medic was pinned. The whole post was coming apart, and Decker, the golden boy, the best shot on the ridge, was out of answers. I'd never seen it before. His hands were shaking. "You," he said to Mara, "you've been lying there for 3 days playing scientist. Where is he?" "South Rocks," she said. "I'm narrowing it." "Narrowing it? Men are dying. Take the shot." "I don't have one yet." "Then I will." Decker shoved in next to her, threw his own rifle up onto the lip of the hide and started scanning, fast and frantic, sweeping the South Rocks. And Mara moved faster than I'd ever seen her move. She grabbed his shoulder and yanked him down flat. "Don't," she snapped. "You skyline yourself sweeping like that, you're his next cough. He wants someone angry. Angry men move, and you die." For 1 second Decker looked like he might hit her. Then the cough came again, and somewhere behind us a round cracked off the rock right where Decker's head had just been, close enough that I felt grit sting my cheek. Decker went white. He understood then. She just saved his life and he knew it and he hated knowing it. "Okay," he said low. "Okay, then what do you need?" And this is the part I tell people who think snipers just lie down and pull a trigger. Because what Mara did next was the most patient, coldest, most beautiful thing I've ever watched a person do. "I need bait," she said. "I need him to fire one more time so I can see his muzzle bloom. One flash, that's all, one flash and I'll have his stone." She looked at Decker. "But it has to be real. He's good. He'll know a helmet on a stick. It has to look like a real man making a real mistake." Nobody said anything, because we all knew what she was asking. And then Decker did the one thing in this whole story that made me not hate him. "I'll do it," he said. "Decker," I started. "Shut up, kid," he looked at Mara. "Tell me where to be and how long to be stupid." She told him, calm, exact. There was a low spot behind the supply bunker, she said, where a man could rise up just for a second like he was panicking, like he was trying to reach Pell and present himself for maybe a count of 2 seconds in the open. Then drop. 2 seconds, she said, not 3 and I'm scraping you off the rock, trust me on the count. Decker nodded, his jaw was tight. He looked at her differently now, not at the checkbox, at the shooter, and you'll get him. Mara settled back behind her rifle, put her cheek to the stock, breathed out long and slow until I swear her whole body sank into the mountain like she'd become part of it. "When he fires at you," she said softly, "he's already dead, he just won't know it for half a second." Decker low-crawled out of our hide and away through the rocks toward the bunker. I lay there next to Mara and I could hear my own heart going. Her hands were perfectly still. Her breathing had slowed to almost nothing. The little wind flags down the slope were ticking gently and her eyes flicked across them, reading the valley's lie top to bottom, 12 flags, and I finally understood what all the arts and crafts had been for. "Wind's quartering," she breathed, mostly to herself. "Stronger down low, he's down low, hold left, hold low." A pause. "Come on, show me your stone." Over the radio, Decker's voice, dead steady now, "Moving on your call, Lynx." She'd never told us a call sign, none of us knew where it came from, Lynx, it just felt right and it stuck from that morning on. "On 3, Mara whispered, 1, 2. I stopped breathing. 3. Decker came up out of the low ground behind the bunker, just like she'd asked. A real man, panicking, lunging like he was trying to drag Pell to cover. Arms out, body exposed, every inch of him a target against the gray rock. It looked exactly like the desperate mistake the enemy had been feeding on for weeks. For 1 beat nothing happened. For 2 beats nothing. And I thought, he's not buying it. He's too smart and Decker's count is almost up, and then the cough. Across the valley, deep in the South Rocks, a tiny flat bloom of light, a breath of muzzle smoke against the shadow, there and gone. But it had been there, and Mara had seen it. Decker dropped a half second before the round arrived. It cracked off the bunker right where his chest had been. He went flat into the dirt, alive. The bait had worked. And in that same half second, I will never forget this as long as I live, Mara didn't rush. She didn't snatch at it. The man who'd just shown himself was already lining up a follow-up shot at Decker. You could feel it. The whole valley felt like it was leaning forward, and still she did not rush. She exhaled, slow. Her finger took up the slack on the trigger the way you'd close a door so as not to wake a baby. "You call yourself a sniper," she breathed, so quiet I almost missed it, almost like she was answering Decker finally 3 days late. And she fired. I had my eye to the spotting scope. I saw it land. Across that whole impossible valley in a quartering wind that lied top to bottom into a tumble of gray rock that looked like every other tumble of gray rock, I saw the round find the one stone that mattered. The cough never came again. For a long moment the whole post was dead silent. Then the radio crackled and somebody on the far flank who had eyes on the South Rocks through a big glass said in this stunned flat voice, confirmed, he's down, the shooter's down." How did she even? And then the post made a sound I'd never heard it make. Men came up out of cover, slow at first, then all at once, and somebody started shouting this raw, ragged cheer, and it spread, and grown men who'd been pinned and helpless 5 minutes before were yelling themselves hoarse because the cough was dead and they were alive and they hadn't done it. She had. Mara didn't cheer, she didn't even smile. She pulled back from the rifle, sat up against the rock and let out one long breath like she'd been holding it for 3 days. Her hands were shaking now that it was over, not before, never before, only after. I just stared at her. How, I said, how did you know it was that stone? She looked out at the valley, tired. I didn't exactly, I knew where he had to be, I knew the wind, I knew when he'd be greedy enough to take a second shot at a target he thought he'd missed. She shrugged, this small, exhausted shrug. After that it's just arithmetic and nerve, the shot's the easy part, I told you that. Decker came in last. He'd crawled all the way back across the open ground and he stood up at the edge of our hide, dirt all down his front, and he just looked at her. He didn't have the swagger anymore. It had gone out of him somewhere out there in the 2 seconds he'd offered up his own life on her say-so. He opened his mouth, closed it, then he crouched down so they were level and he put out his hand. I was wrong about you, he said, just that, no jokes, no crowd to play to, dead wrong, and you saved my life when you had every reason not to. Mara looked at his hand for a second, then she took it. You volunteered to be bait for a stranger you'd been calling a checkbox, she said. We're even. And Decker laughed, a real one this time, shaky, almost a sob in it, and that was that. From that day nobody on Marker 9 ever again said the words real quiet with a smirk. They said her call sign instead, and they said it like a prayer, the Phantom Lynx, because she'd been right there among us the whole time, watching, reading the wind nobody else could read, and we'd look straight at her and see nothing. Tavor didn't make it. I want to be honest about that because the cheering doesn't bring him back and it would be a lie to end on a clean win. We carried him down off that ridge ourselves. Mara helped, she didn't say much. But that night I saw her sitting alone at the edge of the post and she had her little notebook open and she'd written something at the top of a fresh page and underlined it and just sat looking at it. I didn't ask what it said. Years later when I knew her better I finally did. She told me it said one word. Faster. She'd gotten the shooter. She'd saved Decker and Pell and probably half the post. And the only thing she'd written for herself was that she hadn't been fast enough to save the man with 2 kids and the big laugh. That was her. That was always her. The valley would clap and she'd already be doing the arithmetic on the one she lost. People ask me what made the Phantom Lynx the best shooter I ever served beside. They think I'm going to say her eyes or her hands or some trick with the wind, and those were real, but that's not it. It was that she never once believed she was good enough. The men who sneered at her, the men so sure of themselves, they were the ones who got people killed. She was the one lying awake every night certain she could do better, and so she always did. So yeah, they sneered, you call yourself a sniper. She never answered them with words, she didn't need to. She just waited, patient enough to deserve the shot. And then, one gray morning on a ridge with no name, she answered every one of them at once, and the valley has been quiet ever since.